Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Hi, this is Dan Gilmore of Softeon, and you're listening to the New Warehouse Podcast. Today's safety tip is to consider using slotting optimization tools in the distribution center. As just one example, the use of such tools will help ensure that fast-moving SKUs are slotted in or around the chest-height golden zone for picking and replenishment, which is going to minimize the need to bend down to lower levels or to reach higher levels, and should reduce back fatigue and injuries over the course of a day or a shift. Of course, you should also get a nice productivity bump as well, with the added safety just an additional benefit. And remember, the ideal slotting location for a given SKU will vary over the course of its life cycle and might be affected by seasonality and can differ for the same SKU by different units of measure.
Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more. How do you create warehouse superheroes? The answer is simple. With visual voice scan solutions from ProCensus. With record demand and labor shortages, warehouses need more effective workers and lightning-fast onboarding. Visual voice scan solutions from ProCensus enable warehouse workers to achieve superhero performance with up to 20% improved productivity and up to 99% accuracy. Hands-free barcode scanners from ProGlove paired with wearable mobile computers is just the beginning. Improved mobile interfaces with reduced keystrokes, easy-to-read screens, custom keyboards, voice-enabled interface, and more can be realized with ease on the leading WMS platforms. Sound too good to be true? Let us show you with our one-of-a-kind virtual demo. Visit ProCensus.com to get started today. Again, that's ProCensus.com to get started.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by a former guest. He's back again, Dan Gilmore. He is the CMO at Softeon. And Softeon is helping you to make your life better in the operations world and warehousing world by bringing you a new, different kind of WMS. So Dan's going to tell us a little bit about this white paper that they recently came out with, which is actually pretty interesting. It's 7 uncommon keys to WMS project success, which I think is pretty interesting because it is some of the things that typically you might overlook or might not be aware of entering into a project of that scale. So Dan's going to dive into that with us, and we're going to hear a little bit more about that and some of those key tips to success. So Dan, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Kevin, I'm just fine. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, happy to have you back on. Happy to learn more about Softeon, and especially this white paper. I think is a really interesting topic, and I think some of the tips in there I was reading is pretty spot on. But before we dive into that, if people didn't hear the previous episode or not familiar with Softeon, why don't you give us just a little brief overview of what it is you guys do?
Yeah, sure. Just real quick, we're a supply chain software company focusing primarily on warehouse management systems and warehouse execution systems. Of course, those are two sides of a coin, if you will. And in addition to that, the ancillary modules, things like labor management, yard management, slotting optimization, what we call 3PL billing, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And we also have a very robust distributed order management system that is increasingly sold together with the WMS.
All right. Great. So definitely, obviously, software is a huge part of operations, and, having the right software and having the software set up in the right way is a key to really kind of optimizing your operation and ensuring that you're getting the most out of, your days and your work. So this white paper you put out, it's called the 7 Uncommon Keys to WMS Project Success. And like I mentioned, I like that it's the uncommon keys instead of like, I think typically you see these lists and it's like, 7 common tips that you need to do, or like the 7 tips you should always do. And these are some of the things that you don't typically think of. So I like the uncommon approach to it. So I'm curious, what kind of, I guess, drove you guys to put these together and put this white paper out there? Was there like a driving factor that you saw in the market that kind of needed this information?
Yeah, I mean, just, been around this business for a long time and seen all kinds of white papers and presentations at conferences and et cetera on WMS implementation or WMS process or whatever. And, really there's a lot of sameness to them and things that haven't changed, been the same kind of talking points for decades, if you will. And a lot of those are good, good points. I mean, there's always an emphasis that, you need to do more testing, you need to do more training. I think we generally do need to do a lot more testing and training, but I think most companies know that. So we, along with our partner in this white paper effort, consulting company called Throughput Partners, thought there were some, key factors for a successful WMS project that, we rarely hear discussed in those same kind of formats, for venues, presentations or white papers or whatever. And we just thought, we it might be fun to put together a list of things that you probably don't hear discussed a whole lot, in the form of this report.
Great. Yeah. I think it's a great piece. Definitely. And, I've been through WMS projects and things of that nature. So I certainly can relate to a lot of them. Unfortunately, some of the bad sides of them as well experienced, but, so it's the uncommon key. So, I mean, for you guys, when you looked at this list, what did you kind of consider as uncommon? Like what falls into that bucket of uncommon?
Sure. And, again, we picked things that we thought we just, rarely, if ever, in some cases never have heard discussed kind of in open formats or whatever. So that was kind of fun just thinking through it. I mean, we got the idea and then it's like, okay, what would be our list of 7 or 10 or whatever it happened to be? We wound up settling on 7. I'm not going to go through all 7, but I'm going to go through 3 of them here just to give everyone kind of a sense and summarize it. And I'm going to start with having a clear decision-making framework. And you may say, well, Dan, that sounds obvious, but of course, there's going to be during the course of a WMS project issues and problems and unexpected things happen and all that stuff. And decisions need to be made and often fairly rapidly. And so, you'd be surprised how many times a company is not really thought through or structured how decision making is going to get done. And it's very, very important that they do that. How when the key decisions are, points arise, how will they be made and will the decision maker be an individual? Is it going to be a team? There's a lot of different things that need to be considered there. And this all needs to be documented and worked out up front, not ad hoc later in the project. We believe that in the end, one individual's got to be designated as the final decision maker. And that person needs to be communicated, obviously, to the whole team. That role of final decision maker really should not be the top logistics or distribution executive. Yeah. Occasionally that can work, but they're not really close enough to the details of the project that they can really, make those kind of decisions. And I also think that final decision maker needs to be an operations manager, because in the end they have to live with the system, right, and not somebody from outside of IT. So the process about how decisions are going to be made, the cadence of meetings for decision making, all that needs to be documented up front and communicated to the team from the get go. Yeah. So that's number 1. I got number 2, or you got?
I was just going to say, I think the number 1 there. I mean, I think what you said in there about, the top operations executive or logistics executive, whatever the title may be at the company, is not being the ultimate decision maker is I think such a huge thing to say. And I think it's really important, because I've certainly seen it in my experience where people at that level, because they're at that level, they have a certain mindset, I guess, that they should be, the end all decision. But, to your point, they're not involved in the system every day. I mean, I've experienced someone that they never even logged in to the system that the company uses. So I mean, to be making that decision is not really, it shouldn't be on them. And I think that's a great thing that you guys are calling it out and putting that out there. And like you said, the operations manager, I mean, even the people on the floor, should be looking at these kind of things as well, because they're going to be using it day to day to make sure it makes sense. So I definitely love that one. So let's hear it. Let's hear number 2.
Yeah, and I'd just say real quick, and clearly the executive would also, there's so many decisions that need to be made over the course of a 6-month or pick your time frame project, and the senior executives, frankly, with a lot of other responsibilities, would just be overwhelmed with all the different decisions. That doesn't mean somebody's not going to go talk to them about a really critical issue or whatever and let them know, but no, that I think that is certainly the way to go. So second, I'm going to talk about WMS demos. And hey, I'm in the WMS business, but I will agree WMS demos are very fun, rarely very fun, but they're obviously a critical step in selecting the vendor that is going to be the right one for you. Yet it's, there's very little discussion. I mean, you think about it, how many times have you seen, how do you do a WMS demo effectively? Rarely ever brought up. Yeah. And it really needs to be thought through in detail in terms of both, the content of the demo and the process of how the demos are across, multiple vendors are going to unfold. And one that really is important to, for me that I want to call out is just the time allocation. And of course, these demos can run from 3 hours to 2 days, and everything in between. But regardless, usually the demo time is allocated not based on the importance or the criticality of the functionality to be looked at, but just in kind of a peanut butter spread, everything given about equal weight and time. And what that winds up doing is giving too much time to, commodity functions that really aren't, let's just take PO receiving. I'll just use that to pick on an example. Pretty much all leading WMS vendors do PO receiving in somewhat the same way. And that's not to say that it shouldn't be reviewed, but it shouldn't be given as much time for those and similar types of capabilities as things that are mission critical in terms of, reaching your ROI and hitting your business objectives. Yeah. So, I recommend, really, early on, listing out the 6 or 8 or 10 or 12, I don't know what the number is, but it's somewhere in that range of, items that are really key for your success and allow sufficient time for the evaluation team to really get into those areas and understand the difference between vendors and how it meets what your true needs are. Because in the end, it's those key capabilities, differentiated capabilities, that are going to be where the ROI comes from and where you're going to be, how you're going to be able to meet the business objectives behind the whole demo process. So, and just a couple of, I could go on for a long time on this, but just a couple of other demo issues. Oftentimes the scoring systems are either poorly defined or they're defined, but then they're not really used. I can't tell you how many times, we've heard that there's going to be this detailed evaluation from the team, and, the team, while the demo's going on, half of them are doing email or other work, and then you say, how's that scoring really going to come out? Yeah. And then the other thing I just say is, and this is another just thing that really occurred to me, and it often happens with consultants, but just, there's not enough time for WMS vendors to show capabilities that may not have been included in the demo script, usually because they're viewed as sort of out of scope or something if they weren't defined as part of the demo. But that, assumes you've identified all the WMS capabilities that may drive value for you, and that's rarely the case, even with the great consultants. So I think you should encourage some time to be allotted to the vendors to kind of go off script, if you will, to show additional functionality not in the script that may help you in meeting your objectives.
Yeah, very interesting point there. And I do want to ask you a question, actually. You mentioned in there, a demo could be from 3 hours to 2 days. So, if people are shopping around for a WMS and, they're looking at demos, what should be their expectation on what a WMS solution provider can show them as a demo so that they can understand? I mean, what should they be expecting there so that they're not kind of, not getting to see as much as they necessarily should?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, there's no right answer. The time factor. I've seen a few two-day demos. Seen a few two-day demos. Those to me are just far in excess of what anybody needs. There's clearly an element of diminishing returns. The vendor gets tired. The audience gets tired, especially if it's done. As increasingly it is now over Zoom instead of in person. That's starting to come back a little bit, the in-person demos, but still, the remote demos are the preponderance.
Yeah.
So I think anywhere from 4 hours to a full day kind of depends. I personally would probably go more in the 4 to 5 hour type of time frame, and that's including maybe setting up a separate technical discussion, so you don't bog down the demo with the integration and technology and all those kind of issues that are usually a different kind of audience or whatever.
Yeah. And
so from there, it's really a matter of how do you put the script together? How tight is it? How much detail you really want to get into? But again, I think if you consider this notion of identifying the things that are really key to you and making sure you spend adequate time there so it doesn't feel rushed, as it so often does. Mm-hmm. You think, picking the order of management and release, function is so important to this DC working.
Yeah.
And the time to demo it just felt so tight, that I feel like you didn't get a chance to give it, the discussion it deserves. So they're all over the map, and a lot of it driven by the consultants. One other tip I would just have is make sure you look at that script very closely, because sometimes consultants basically copy from one script from one project to another and don't really vet it for this new project. And you see some extraneous stuff in there that really isn't, valid, demo requirements, and that's something you really got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, interesting. I was curious about that, and I like the part that you said too, that go off script a little bit and try and push them to show you some other functionality there. So that's a good one as well. So you got a third one for us here? It sounds like
I got one more. I'll go through it real quick, but just too many companies you got to avoid letting critical time slip by very early in the project.
Mm-hmm.
When it first starts out, it's a big project, but it's going to be 6 months or 7 months or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Even if it's 4 or 5 months, it seems like you've got a decent amount of time. But and companies will sometimes get careless and let some milestones slip or just take longer to do stuff because it just doesn't feel the pressure that you do in the last few months when you you got to go live coming, fairly around the corner.
Yeah.
But that slippage is going to come back and bite you in the rear later on, because for every, delay, somewhere in the process, you have one less day to test or one less day to train or, any of the things we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. And these delays, accumulate and wind up then impacting, the go live activities.
Right.
So it's just so easy to let, that time slip early on. You need to really define the cadence of the meetings. The dates are going to be very early on. Get them on the schedule. Plan out, the entire, work stream design. Lock in people's schedules or whatever. Because again, the what seems like a luxury of time comparatively at the beginning, doesn't turn out to be that way at the end, and you can't get it back. You missed 2 days here on this activity. Those are 2 days that are just gone, and you got two choices in the end: either delay the go live date or to hit the go live date, but not have done as much testing, training, integration, et cetera, as you want. And just some other kind of examples of that. Getting the WMS production and test environments set up very early, making sure they're configured and ready to go, so that time is not lost when the testing teams are available, but the environments aren't available to them to do that testing. So the basic point about all that is just that the opening weeks of the project are especially critical. You can't let time bleed there. And another couple of tips, you want to really plan and communicate any requirements for off shift or weekend work well in advance of any need for that, to come, because those things are not easy to schedule. And I'd recommend putting in some kind of a contingency factor, maybe 2 weeks, let's say, on a 6-month project, as kind of a buffer time, just in case things slip as they inevitably do. And if you've made the schedule so tight you don't have that contingency time, then again you're going to run into the same dilemma about either pushing the date out or or going live without all the prep work being done that really should.
Mm. Yeah, very good points there and tips. Definitely, I certainly have experienced some long hours working on WMS projects and things of that nature. So it's very good to set that understanding up front and make sure everybody's clear on that. And I like the buffer you put in there, the contingency of 2 weeks as well. I think that's a huge one because you certainly don't want to rush it. And obviously, if you give yourself a little cushion and you can get done before the cushion, you probably look pretty good actually. But
right.
It's definitely a good thing to be able to do that because inevitably something's going to go off track somewhere, and the schedule is going to get messed up at some point. So you want to be able to be flexible on that and work around that. So very, very good tips there. The 3 out of the 7, I like those ones that you chose. And I'm curious though, for the kind of wrap up here, and it's kind of the last one. I mean, how do you know, and I think this is probably the most important, how do you kind of gauge along the way and know if things are going according to your plan? What's the best way to do that?
I mean, clearly you need to do that detailed schedule that I talked about with all the milestones and quite a bit of detail, and then you need to regularly evaluate, and your weekly meetings are typical, where you're going to constantly monitor the progress against those plans. So you need obviously to have a very strong project manager that's capable of doing that, and really putting some heat on folks. One of the things that I think you got to be a little bit careful of is, when people report back on a particular work stream, the people working on that is 50% complete or 70% complete or, whatever. Well, what does that really mean, right? Yeah. And how is that defined? So, friendly, challenge whether the progress on those, because you've certainly seen many times the things that were said to be 80% complete wind up taking, considerably longer because, something wasn't quite right or whatever. So, it's just really, I mean, it's typical project management. But one of the factor to mention is a lot of times people are put on these projects that don't have a tremendous amount of experience in project management. So some oversight is clearly needed. But it's just really a matter of just rigorous attention to the schedule and the milestones, and honest reporting about where things stand, and just being I'll call it pretty hard-nosed, for lack of a better term, in terms of people getting their work done.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the biggest things is that accountability on the project, because we talk about the contingency and getting off track and stuff like that, and one person not following through on what they're supposed to do can certainly derail a schedule for a project like that. So really, really great points there, and I like the white paper. I think it's really well done, and it definitely hits some of the things that I think are super important, but as you mentioned, not always thought about or discussed. So it's really important to have those discussions up front and have that understanding. So Dan, I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing these with us. Really, really insightful stuff. So I appreciate that. But I'm curious, what's coming up next for Softeon? What are you guys doing in the new year here?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. I'll just make a shameless plug, if I may. The white paper course is available on Softeon.com. Just go to the resources tab under white papers, and you'll find it. So happy to have you downloaded that. So, we continue our journey on kind of the several things, and they're tied together, kind of the smart warehouse of the future, which we think we're pretty close to delivering, today. And a lot of that involves this notion of the autonomous WMS as well, in terms of, and this is part of what we talked about in the first broadcast, but the automated release of work based on a variety of factors, from inventory and resource availability to carrier cutoff times, and having that work just flow through the system in a pull-based kind of way, and really taking a lot of the human decision making, out of the WMS process, because human being, it adds latency to the problem, and they just simply can't process, put together all of the different factors that are data that's available the way that an automated system can. And so I think you're going to see, a very different warehouse management system environment emerge over the next 3 to 5 years. And frankly, we've already really started on that path.
Okay, great. And it'd be interesting to see how you guys continue to grow and how we get closer to that fully automated warehouse that you're talking about there. So it'll be really interesting stuff. So Dan, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll definitely post the link to the white paper as well as Softeon. But what's the Softeon website once again for people?
It's just www.softeon.com. That's SOFTEON.
I love the easy ones. So we're going to put that at thenewwarehouse.com as well so people can easily find it. So Dan, thank you again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.